If you're new to this channel, we're James and Sarah, also known as The Whole World or Nothing.
We used to be full-time backpackers, exploring the world and writing about our travels on our blog.
And then the world changed.
We got repatriated from Peru and found ourselves back in the UK at a loose end. So we decided to do a van conversion.
Make sure you hit subscribe now so you can join us in this series as we share the highs and many lows of converting an old Mercedes Sprinter panel van into our dream home on wheels.
If you watched our last insulation videos, you'll have seen us struggling to make our insulation board fit into the strange shapes of the van's cavities, before finally discovering the joys of templates.
After insulating most of the walls and floors, we realised that we hadn't cut any panels for the back doors. So using all of our hard-won knowledge, we templated them out, making sure to leave a gap around the edge for the expanding foam and fired them up pretty quickly.
We had a few other bits and pieces to finish before we could get started on insulating the ceiling and installing the vapour barrier, and we ran into a couple of issues that needed sorting out before we could do that. There's a couple of wires that run across the width of the van, and we were just trying to figure out exactly what we were going to do with them so that we could actually put the insulation in to make it easier for ourselves. And we realised that the only thing that they're powering is these lights in the back here, which are going to be underneath cladding, so we don't need them anyway. So we decided that what we're going to do is take them off and just completely strip that wire back to there and then cap it off at the other side. It's pretty simple to get them out. You just put your trim tool, very handy tool. Did I say that before?
Yeah, we've talked about them a lot.
Underneath there, and it literally just pops out. And then there's two little wire clips here that are pretty simple to pull out, a little bit of force and they come out. That's the light removed. And then this conduit is what the cable's in, so you can just pull that out if you can get it past your insulation that you shouldn't have put in already. And then we're going to unclip all of these and just take it back to the other side like I said. And to do that you're going to need a trim tool. Did I talk about this before? Anyway, this trim tool is the one that you're going to need because there's these all have these little clips which have two prongs either side, and this is perfect for putting on the top of it, sliding it down, and it pushes both those prongs in, and you can literally just pull that out of the hole then.
He says
might be facing the wrong way. There we go.
boom.
Simple.
We are starting on putting the reflectix all over the walls, but we've got to sort out a little situation here first. Obviously we want the insulation in there, but this has to have a hole to go into. So we were going to create something out of wood maybe, but then we had the idea to just use a plastic margarine tub because it's lightweight and it's just the right size that we need. So we're just going to put that in there and seal that in there so that that hole will stay there. It'll all be sealed with the reflectix, but this has the space that it needs to go into the cavity so the door opens properly. So hopefully it'll work. We're just making this up, like literally as we go along. We've not seen anyone else do this, so here goes. And it did work. We covered the plastic tub in foil tape and glued it in place to the van.
Next up, it was onto our reflectix vapour barrier. I'll leave you for 2 minutes and this is what you get up to.
It's a pretty simple process of measuring out the size and shape and taping it in place. The most important thing is to make sure there are no gaps where moisture could potentially get in.
Now I think it's probably worth pointing out at this stage that we're actually only using the Reflectix as a vapour barrier. There's a lot of discussion, as there is with anything when it comes to van conversion, over what Reflectix should actually be used for, and there are people that think that it is an insulator. My understanding is that Reflectix by itself is not very effective as an insulator. The only way that it is effective is if you create a gap between the Reflectix and something else, so it's the air that's actually insulating rather than the Reflectix itself. And I think that the size of the gap should be 3/4 of an inch. That's not really practical in a van, to have a 3/4 inch gap on your walls, your ceiling, and you certainly can't do it on your floor. The way that we figure it is we've already got our insulation in. We've got insulation boards and we have got the recycled plastic. That's going to be doing the insulating. We don't need an extra insulation. So what we're going to be using it for is simply to keep the vapour and the moisture out of the insulation that we've actually installed. We've had a couple of days off the van build. We've been seeing family and spending some time with them, which has been lovely.
Yeah, it's been great.
But now we are back on it and we're raring to go. And today we're going to be finishing the vapour barrier with that Reflectix that you can see in the background. But we've come across a little problem.
Yeah, we say we were raring to go, and then we were like, oh, how are we going to do this?
So we spent the past hour or so just puzzling something out. And we will show you what that is and how we think we're going to fix it.
I don't know if I'm going to explain this very well. However, you can see the problem. We've got a window, and when we bring the cladding up to it, we need to have a finished surface. So we are trying to think about how we can do that in terms of making a frame. It would be nice to have a shelf here because this is going to be where the bed is. So what we're thinking is we're going to build a frame that's going to sit on the outside, and that will join the rest of the battens that the cladding will fix to. So that should be nice and secure. And then inside that we're going to make another frame that will finish off these gaps and this edging, and the bottom bit will be slightly larger so that that will be a shelf. They'll both fix to each other so that it should be nice and secure. But at the minute we've got the problem where we just rounded these edges to go over the window because we didn't think about this aspect of it when we were sticking these on. So we've got to try and cut this square somehow. I've just been trying to do it with a knife, but it's not going very well, so we're gonna have to try and get the electric knife out again and yeah, see if that does a better job of cutting out these rounded corners.
Now, in case anyone didn't manage to follow that long-winded explanation, we initially made a rounded hole in the insulation board to mirror the window, when in hindsight it would have been far more practical to make a rectangular hole. So to rectify that situation, we drew on some corners and cut them out with our trusty electric knife. And now we've gone from a circle to a rectangle, which is exactly what we're going to need to build the frame and the shelf, hopefully.
Hopefully. I mean, we've got in our head how it should look.
Yeah.
In theory. We just watched a video on someone making a frame with curved corners because we thought, oh, wicked, we could do that and just like make it exactly around it. We can't do that.
It takes skills that we don't possess.
No. We don't have the tools either. The tools or the know-how, so.
Yeah. But we can get on with the Reflectix now,
yep.
So let's do that.
I am putting the vapour barrier, the Reflectix, on the doors at the back. I forgot what they were called then. We are going to be putting plywood over this, and the cladding is going to stick on the plywood. So I'm trying to just make it really neat around the edges so that none of the tape sticks out that you're going to be able to see beyond the plywood.
I am insulating the ceiling, and the way that we're doing it is with this 50mm insulation board, which is what we've actually used on the walls as well. I'm just cutting it down to size, and I'm having to chop it into about 3 pieces because of the curve of the wall, of the ceiling, sorry. So that it follows that, because we didn't want to just put one piece across. We tried it, but what we found is that it sits too low, so we're going to lose a bit of the ceiling. So instead I've chopped it into these 3 pieces so that we can angle the 2 side pieces upwards, and the middle piece kind of follows that line pretty well. To secure it up, I'm going to be using these stick pins, and you basically just stick them to the ceiling, push the board in, and then they've got a little bit of the pin that sticks out from the end. and you bend that over, and it's got another bit that attaches onto that as well, and then we're going to foil tape it all.
What's happening? What are you getting frustrated with?
These things, when I'm pushing the insulation board on, these pins are bending a bit, which means that not enough is sticking out on the bottom side for me to pin these fixings into. So, I mean, I'm on the last two panels. So it's just winding me up now. I just want to get it finished and start foil taping over it.
The problem with the pins actually made it quite difficult to use them in some places, because as you can see, there was only a tiny bit to try and bend over with the hammer. But overall, it's a quick and effective method of sticking ceiling insulation panels on. We have finished putting the insulation in the roof. That's what it looks like. So now we've just got to tape up all the little cracks and all the little puncture marks and everything with the aluminium tape to make sure that it's all sealed and one big vapour barrier. It's getting really hot in here now. Like, it's not even warm outside and it's like early evening, but you can definitely tell the temperature, like from when we were working in here at this time on a night on a similar temperature day. It was quite cold, but now with the door shut and everything, it's quite toasty, which is good. It means we're doing it properly.
We used an incredible amount of foil tape doing this job, so if you're doing it yourself, we'd highly recommend buying more than you think you'll need and taking the extra back if necessary, rather than the multiple trips to the hardware store that we did to pick up more.
That's it for this week. If you enjoyed the video, please let us know with a thumbs up and a comment down below. And make sure you've subscribed and have that bell button clicked so you get notified every time we post a new video.
And join us next week when we're going to be installing our vinyl floor and building some wheel arch boxes.